Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth, shifting you into higher consciousness. A show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, interviews with inspiring guests, experts, and celebrities, intuitive readings, channeled messages, mental health awareness, and hot topics to expand your awareness. Tune in for unprecedented truth, authenticity, on-purpose discussions, and magical moments.
People are more something, and seeing where people are at in general, because it changes from, year to year, depending on what's going on in the world, as well as what's going on in people's lives. And you did a survey about fear. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I recently wrote a blog on the topic of choosing fear over joy. And whenever I write a blog, I always put Instagram polls and questions in my story, because I feel like asking people questions helps them understand how they can relate to the topic that I'm talking about, and also help them better understand kind of the way that they can connect to those topics in their own way. And so when I was asking these questions, I asked two questions, which is usually less than I usually do. But the first question was, would you rather feel fear or joy? And the second question I asked was, what do you actually feel more, fear or joy? And I found that the results were really interesting. It was something that I thought was going to happen because it was what I wrote about, but to actually see the results was really interesting. And so the first question, almost 100% of the people said that they would rather feel joy over fear. Mm-hmm. But then in the second question, over 50% of the people who responded said that on a daily basis, they actually feel fear more than joy, even though they want to feel that joy more. And so it's really interesting to see that, because you can see how much fear really does overpower us when we allow it to, because it is a decision that we make. Mm-hmm. That we really allow that fear to take over us, even when we want to feel something that can bring us more comfort and happiness and that joy in our life.
I think it's because it's like part of it is we're afraid to let go and not have control, because then what can happen? Like, what if? But what turns out to happen is when you do decide to let go fully, then you can feel that joy and peace no matter what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of one of the things that I wrote about, is that one of the main reasons why people choose fear over joy is because fear, if you're so familiar to fear, and something like joy or peace or whatever your ideal feeling is a little bit more foreign to you, you're going to gravitate towards the fear because it's more comfortable. It's something that is familiar to you. And we're always going to gravitate towards something that's more comfortable, because if something is uncomfortable and we don't know what it really feels like, or if we let go, trying to trust that someday we will get that joy is very uncertain. And as a species, we hate uncertainty. We hate being uncomfortable. And so that's why fear is felt so much more, because we're used to it and we've learned how to settle and deal with it.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. That's like that. A lot of people need to listen to that again and think about that. Like, are you there? Is that what's going on? It brings me back to a client I worked with years ago. And I remember he said, I don't really know what it's like to feel happiness. And he came from a lot of trauma. And he goes, I don't even know what it is. And he would create a lot of drama in his life and, kind of have this roller coaster thing going on. And he said, oh, when I start to feel like it might be happiness, I do something to kind of mess things up. Mm-hmm. And because that feels exciting to me, and I don't know what happiness is like. And he wasn't even really making his own sense. Like, he was going, I don't get why I'm doing this, but this is what keeps happening. And so, yeah, it takes like deciding, okay, I'm not going to let myself experience this anymore. And I'm going to find ways to let go. I'm going to work on how to get out of fear and to get into more harmony and joy. But it actually takes, sometimes working with someone, sometimes intentional activities, a lot of mindset and reprogramming your thoughts. What are some other ways that you guys think?
Yeah, you want to go?
No, it's okay.
I mean, I think that the most important part is that, like you said, a lot of people don't know that that's what happens. And I think the major part of first overcoming that fear is changing your meaning around it. Because when we sit in that fear and have it overpower us, it's because of the meaning that we give to it, which is usually that fear is something to be afraid of. It's something that, can hurt us and that can then limit what we want. But if we can change the meaning around fear, we can then manipulate the way that we use it and you not see it as something that's hurting us, but something we can use to then develop and grow in a different way. Because what fear really means is that you feel unprepared for something that you think is going to happen in the future. So if you know that and you change your meaning around it, then the solution to kind of mitigate that is to get prepared for whatever you feel like is going to happen. And so like Kim, if it's for your example with like the person you were coaching, if their thing is that fear, they are feeling all this fear around like being happy and kind of like self-sabotaging it in the way, then they need to see like, okay, what is it that I'm so afraid will happen if I feel this happiness, and how can I create goals or ways that can then make me feel more comfortable getting to that place instead of sitting in the fear and using it as an excuse not to get there.
Totally. And I think they have to develop a why, like a really strong pull to want that instead of the other, and to really come to that realization. And it's also, a type of fear is also stress or overwhelm, because a lot of times, or anxiety, a lot of times that comes because of incessant obsessive worrying or feeling of like being kind of like a feeling of dread or feeling that something's going to happen, like you were talking about. And there were medical psychologists that proved that those who filled their minds, bodies, and souls and spirits with good stress, which is like doing things out of your comfort zone, going hiking, going dancing, going to a concert, getting a dog, doing something new regularly, it's going to fill your body and your mind and soul with good stress. And it's much less likely that you're going to experience the stress that feels negative.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when you were saying you have to, Tony Robbins calls it leverage. So you have to get the leverage over yourself to so much leverage over yourself, which usually comes from pain. So if there's so much pain associated with feeling the fear, then you're going to get that leverage over yourself to change and ultimately try to overcome the fear.
So it's like the fear has all the power.
Yeah, which is the decision too. Like you give the power to the fear.
Thank you for listening to Talk Purpose and Truth podcast. Find out more at talkpurposeandtruth.com. And follow us at Talk Purpose Truth on Instagram and Facebook.